Today I want to talk about some common AIP ingredients that you may not be familiar with. So if you're new to a paleo style diet, some of these ingredients may be completely new to you. And if you've been doing paleo for a while, some of these may be some ones that you are familiar with, and then other ones may be completely new to you. So the first one is tapioca starch or flour. It's made from the yucca plant, and it is taken like the starch, basically starch and water all the way like broken down, and then made into a fine powder. It is a very high starch flour and can cause some digestive issues with some, so it is something to use in moderation while on AIP, but it can help thicken soups and stews as well as make some pretty delicious baked goods. The other flour that is made from the yucca plant is cassava flour. Now this is made more with the entire cassava root rather than just the starch. However, it is also high in starch, so it is to be used in moderation, and you need to look out for any negative effects after having it. However, it can also be made into some pretty delicious baked goods, so it is something that to look at while you're on AIP. Arrowroot powder or starch is one that's kind of similar to tapioca. It's made from a different tropical plant. However, it's still also high in starch, and it's great for thickening soups and stews and for like outer coatings on chicken to kind of crisp it up, things like that. But it looks and feels a lot like tapioca, and a lot of times can be used interchangeably for tapioca. And then coconut flour is the next one. It's made from the coconut meat into a powder flour. It's very high in protein and it absorbs a lot of liquid. It's a little bit harder to use in AIP versus paleo because a lot of times it likes a lot of eggs, and you can't have eggs on AIP, but there are certain kind of baked goods and coatings on top of chicken and stuff like that that you can use it for. The next one is mace. Now, nutmeg is a seed and is therefore avoided on AIP. However, mace is the red webby kind of coating around the nutmeg plant, and they can dry that and grind it down into a powder, which surprisingly tastes a lot like nutmeg. It's a little bit milder, but it gives the same exact taste. So if you're trying to make those pumpkin spiced baked goods or lattes or anything that that you would use nutmeg for, just use mace 1-for-1 for it. The next one is carob powder, which we use as a replacement for chocolate or cacao powder. It is caffeine free and high in fiber, so it is really good for you. And it's a powder. It looks just like cocoa powder, so you can use it 1-for-1 in any of the baked goods or things that you would usually use cocoa powder. It just has a slightly different taste profile to it, so it doesn't taste like chocolate necessarily, but it's got kind of the same idea. The next one is chicory. This one is a ground and dried root that surprisingly tastes a lot like coffee, or at least has the same kind of bitterness as coffee. So we use this in a coffee kind of replacement beverage. I typically use it with dandelion root and carob powder we just discussed to make a beverage that has that same kind of bitterness and flavor as coffee. So if you're not a coffee drinker, you're probably not going to need this one. However, it is something to know if you really, really enjoy your morning cup of coffee and want some sort of pretty decent replacement. The next one is cream of tartar. This is like an acidic byproduct of wine fermentation, but it is actually used in the context of AIP if you're gonna make baked goods, because you can't have baking powder. Baking powder typically either contains corn or some other elements that are not AIP compliant. But if you want to have something that's like a baking powder that will really help make your baked goods rise, you can use a mixture of baking soda and cream of tartar to make your own baking powder. The next one are Tigernuts. These are not actually nuts, they're little tubers that were dried, and they taste and feel and everything a lot like nuts. And they kind of fill in that nut, like if you want a nut topping or make a granola with nuts or something like that, it really helps with that as well. The next one is coconut sugar. Now this is one where the sap of a coconut palm has, like, the water has been evaporated from it, and you get this like crystalline kind of stuff that resembles sugar, and it's very sweet. Again, just like sugar, it's not something that you should have a lot, definitely in moderation. However, it is one of the AIP compliant sweeteners, so I just wanted to mention it. There are other AIP ingredients that you may not be familiar with. It's hard for me to know which ones are really, really common and not, just because I've been in it so long. But if you know of an ingredient that you're really wondering about, make sure you comment below and I can get back to you on that. But that's all I've got for the day. So make sure if you haven't already, sign up for my paleo freebie library by getting the password at the link below. Like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.